Hey Emily,
Hi Bree, how's it going?
it's good. It's good. I'm trying to not have the leaf blower guy make noise in this Zoom, so hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yeah, your,
Um,
your sound is good.
Thanks for joining me today on this new Zoom adventure,
Yeah,
um,
this is exciting.
an Insta Live series gone Zoom Live series. Um, I'm so glad to be chatting to you. I know we've known each other for a couple of years, and I'm so interested in how COVID is affecting the lives of artists these days. It's such an important piece, and I know once this hit, it was my first idea. My first thought was, I hope this doesn't affect like the arts and media community, and it is like directly affecting a lot of that stuff, which is sad because I think it's such an important part of our lives and our expression and all of that. Um, so why don't you take a second just to explain, just tell who you are and what kind of medium you work in, the kind of art that you do.
Okay, cool. So I am a fine artist, and so my main focus right now is I do abstract painting, and then I incorporate embroidery into the canvases. And I also do a small ongoing series of just embroidery on canvas, which is kind of more minimalist. Yeah, so I sell my work on my website and through working a lot with interior designers and that kind of thing.
Oh, there you go. Very cool. Um, so how has COVID really affected, how has COVID and also the stay-at-home order affected your business as an artist? And how have you creatively decided to pivot or, introduce kind of virtual markets to your world?
Yeah, I think like you and I were talking a little bit last night. I just being very honest, like the within the first few days of kind of the lockdown and thing coming to LA and the businesses closing, I just kind of went into like fear mode of like, oh no, um, the economy is turning down and people's work is changing, and just like art is a luxury basically, and it's going to be like the first thing to go. Like it's not, people are concerned about their jobs, their mortgage, their food, like no one's going to be thinking about art. And and so in a way it was stressful, but then on the other hand I just kind of like surrendered, and I was just like, it's okay. Like whatever is going to happen is just going to happen. But then like within a few days I had messages from people saying that I had orders coming in and people messaging and saying like, I just like wanted to support an artist in this time. I know that it's going to be like a hard time for artists. So a lot of people were buying art and saying, if they were in the position to to still have some income to buy things, that they wanted to make sure to support like small businesses and makers. And so that was really cool to see. And yeah, I've seen um, just a lot more engagement with my art, and people wanting to bring it home than I would have thought at the beginning of this. And in terms of like what I've done kind of to pivot, again, I think the best thing I did was just in the beginning was just like surrender. Like I have no control over this. I'm just going to keep doing the normal things that I do, sharing my work on Instagram in a way that's still like sensitive to the climate, not, pushing selling on anyone.
Yeah, not really being tone deaf, acknowledging
Yeah,
what's happening and also still trying to support yourself as an artist in your business. And what you're saying about surrendering is 5 million% true. I fought surrendering for about 5 weeks. And only at that point did kind of the magic start to happen. Things started kind of coming up to the top. And I started being able to have these conversations with myself of like, I can't do all of this, but let's focus on what I can do. Let's focus on what I've been wanting to do. Let's focus on what I want to put back in after all of this, after everything's kind of been stripped down. Um, so I'm so glad to hear that it wasn't a complete downturn for you. It was definitely, people were still interested and interested in not only supporting you in the way of like actual paying for goods, but also for like, uh, collaborating, in terms of like doing this kind of stuff or Have you had any other kind of lives or any sort of like?
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say the same thing, that like the other really cool thing that like you just when things like this first come on the radar, you're just like everyone's like scared and uncertain, and then we start to like support each other. So that's been like the coolest thing also is coming together with other artists and just like creative people in general. And I've just seen so much more like sharing of each other's work, and like wanting to spread the word as a group. And then yeah, I did an Instagram live a few weeks ago with an interior designer, which was awesome. And we talked about sort of something I had seen with just, people being home more, and, staring at all of those home projects that they've been like meaning to get to. And now they have all this extra time and they're in their homes. So we talked about, ways to kind of refresh your home space. And yeah, I've been taking advantage of a lot of different kind of ways to bring value to people together like this, like
Yeah,
interior designers audience, photographers audience, mine, like we can all kind of learn from each other.
absolutely. I mean, we're all in the visual medium space. And the most inspiration I get is from other people being passionate or creative about their creative endeavors. So just being in that energy feels really nice right now, and comforting, and it feels really open for everyone to be able to explore kind of new ideas. So I know you talked a little bit about kind of this mindset of a lot of people have been laid off or furloughed or, forced to take unpaid leave. And at the same time, people are kind of forced to stare at their walls all the time, every day. And I would understand like a decrease in art sales. Like that would make sense to me. But then again, I know you've seen an increase with it. What do you think incorporating art, especially original art, in your home, or why do you think it's so important, especially at this time? And second part to that is, how do you do that? Even if people are on a budget, because
Yeah, I think the first thing is that yeah, I obviously this is like a situation that no one wants, and there's so many like just terrible things about it. But I do hope that people have realized that their homes can do so much for them, that like it can be a source of comfort and safety, but also like these past few weeks, it's really also become like our main source of entertainment and like stimulation. And so I think having art on the walls can really be, not just like decor to like, make your house look good, but it can also be, right now we can't go out to restaurants, we can't go out to museums or stores or kind of get those like visual juices going. So it's nice to have something in your house that's really meaningful. And even if that is like a poster that, you found on the street, like I used to do in college, find cool posters on the street, but they would have meaning for me and a story. And I think and even buying kind of like inexpensive art prints, if they really have meaning to you, I think is important. And yeah, so I guess I'm hoping that's what people are getting out of this, is like realizing that it's worth taking the time and spending a little bit of money to have things in your home that are meaningful, because art kind of reflects your personality more than like other kinds of objects in your home. And yeah, like I said, like I think original art personally is such an amazing thing to collect, even if you are on a budget, because it's such a direct human connection. It's like, that someone else's hands and energy went into this thing, and it's in your home, and it's like a very kind of intimate thing to have.
the experience, like it continues, right? Like that's what I think about when I have a piece, is like someone had this very kind of this relationship with this piece that they were creating, and then I brought it into my home and like what it means for me, and it continues it on. It's like, it's so cool. It just becomes bigger than just an object, right? It becomes an
Yeah.
experience. It becomes,
Yeah, and it makes kind of like a dialogue. Like I think now it's like the experience, and also, you know, the whole thing that we're all craving is like the human connection. And I think having art, or even, you know, it's the same if you're like listening to a song, like you're connecting with the person who wrote it. But the cool thing about having original art in your house is it's kind of like just for you. Like no one else has the same piece anywhere, so it's like very personal to that relationship with you. um, but yeah, and as far as you know, the same thing goes for prints. You know, prints are definitely a less expensive option, and they're a nice way to get started. And I think it's a good way to kind of bridge the gap, because I think art has such a reputation of being so like exclusive and kind of intimidating.
not accessible for people, you know, for normal people. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you have
exactly.
to be
Especially
rich
like
to, you know, get, you know.
commissioning a painting or something sounds very like highfalutin, but like it's totally doable for everyone. But if you're just kind of dipping your toe, I think it's nice to transition from kind of like the sort of like generic prints that you would find at like IKEA or something, maybe just taking a little bit more time and like connecting with artists on Instagram and buying a print of theirs that kind of like speaks to you more. And then my like ultimate budget art hack, which I love, and I do like collect, you know, art in my house, but I also one of my favorite things to do is to buy really nice gift wrap, like the kind that comes in just like one sheet, you know,
Like
like rifle
papyrus or paper
paper.
store, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Those, you know, stores,
paper
and just
stores and stuff.
frame that.
Mm.
I think that can look so good. So just finding like creative ways to like realize like it doesn't have to be like, you know, buying $1,000 painting, but it could just be like thinking outside the box a little bit about like, you know, not just buying like art in a box at Target or whatever, but kind of like seeking it out a little more.
I think so much of what you're saying is ringing true, and is bringing up these other ideas kind of that I've been thinking about too. Is um, art feels like a slow practice, you know, for the maker and for the, you know, the experience of experiencing it, thinking about it. You know, for us, we do have an original Emily Snyder in our house, and for so long it hung on a spot on the wall that I knew wasn't right, and trying to figure out like where I wanted to put it and why I wanted to put it there and how it integrated and had like a reaction with the things around it. And it just feels nice to like not consume, digest, and then move on. Like it feels nice to have this, excuse me, this kind of slow relationship with a piece and have it live in a space and feel it out and change it if you want to. And so for me, it's that whole experience. It's just been pretty eye opening, because like that's the only piece of original that I have. Because I print a lot of my work and put it out, like photos that we take on trips and stuff. But you can make it what you want, and I think that that's the coolest thing about it. So I know you kind of talked about a little bit about this with the wallpaper. Are there any other kind of tips and tricks or ways that people can start, you know, doing the art thing in their home without buying, you know, the $1,000 originals?
Yeah, I think definitely like looking through just like old things that you might have around. Like I know I have um, like this actually reminded me, I have a really great art piece that one of my good friends made in college that she gave to me. And like, you know, she just made it in her class. It wasn't like, you know, a huge deal, but it was like so special that she gave it to me. And I've had it just like sitting kind of in a box for a while. And so it's like, you know, those things, especially if it's like someone close to you has made it, it doesn't matter if they're like a famous artist. It's like it has, you know, it may be even more meaning that you know the person. So just like remember, like going through your mind and thinking like, you know, actually saying like, oh yeah, that's been on my list. Like, let's make it happen. Let's frame that thing and put it up.
It feels so good when you finally do, though, because you feel
Yeah,
like you're giving it a permanent home, and that you're giving it like the respect and the, you know, the viewership that it deserves. Some of the stuff I've gotten from my nieces and nephews are totally all over. We're fridge people, as you can see. It's
yeah,
half full of memories and stuff, but the bottom piece, it's kind of flipping. It says like to Mark and Breezy, and it's like this weird animal cow horse thing, and I love it so much. And I want to frame it one day, you know. the connection to the artist is huge for me personally when I'm, buying something or thinking about it.
Yeah, I think that's another great point about kids art. I mean, I know, I'm not the first person to say this, but I do think like a nice frame, and by nice, I don't even mean like it has to be custom or expensive, but just like, I like just like a simple, like kind of light wood frame, and throwing like your kids' art or your niece and nephew's art, like it looks so cool. Like it always looks like very modern, and just having the frame around it kind of like elevates it a little bit. The other thing I wanted to mention is kind of, since I think some of us do still have that feeling of we are still in an uncertain time, and there is like a little hesitation to buy something that's not like quote unquote functional, but my boyfriend and I have like kind of a mug addiction, and we find mugs that are made from like artists or artisans that like really take their time and make things by hand. And having like a really nice mug has been like such a treat, because it feels like you're buying art, but it's also something that you can use, so you get to see it every day, which is really fun. And it's kind of cool to have some like functional items like that, because I like, the reason I go out to restaurants and cafes like is for the design. Like I love being surrounded by that stuff, and so like having a nice mug or like a nice plate can kind of make you feel like you're in a restaurant, even if you're just eating takeout.
I love that idea. That's fantastic. We have a collection of kind of mismatched mugs for that reason, because they just hold a special place, so we can't get rid of them. But everything moving forward, I'm like, we're going to stay in this color palette. So then my eyes are always open, like when I'm anywhere. I especially love too when artists, like, I don't know how you feel about Society6 as a platform. But having something like a mug that you can get printed with someone's work on it, support them in a way, becomes a functional piece. Like, if that's where you can start, then that's a nice way to start. And it kind of creates this theme, right? So then I think you're more likely to kind of buy more from that artist, because you've already started kind of collecting them, in a way.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to mention Society6 and I forgot, but that's a great point. Like, yeah, sites like that, for like their objects, are really cool, and their art prints. I was going to say them and Artfully Walls are really nice places to start if you don't know of like a lot of artists that you like, or you're still kind of figuring out what your style is, because they have so many great artists, and it's like pretty affordable.
That's great. Okay, cool. I'm glad you're a fan. I was like, I don't know how she's gonna get this.
Yeah, no, it's cool.
So there's a couple questions here. We've got one from Katie DeWitt Design. She asked, how do you decide between landscape versus portrait in the case of like incorporating art into your home?
Yeah, I saw that question. I thought that was such a good question. I think, like the just basic, like traditional answer would be like visually that like over a headboard or over a couch, you would want a landscape just to kind of fill in that space lengthwise. And then on something like a more, like if you have a wall in your hallway that's kind of like not a huge wall, but kind of small, that portrait is nice. Just like filling in that space. But I really like using like the orientation of work to play with height and scale in your space. Ironically, it's such a funny question because most of the paintings that I make are square.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think it's sort of because like I just don't want to choose. So I'm just like, it'll be both. But in my house, I think it's fun to play with those orientations, to again play with scale. Like in our bathroom, we have this like pretty small wall, but we have a huge landscape orientation photo print that takes up the entire wall. There's only like an inch of space on either side, and so it makes it feel like very dramatic, which is cool. On a wall that like I think a normal person would just get like a standard like portrait orientation picture and just like hang it there, we kind of like went the other way.
Right, and just went drama, just like big and.
Yeah, exactly. And it can be also a good way to, if you feel like everything in your space feels like very vertical, or like your ceilings are really high, which I don't think anyone would think is like a problem. That's usually like a good thing. But if you wanted things to feel more like kind of like low down and long, then like having a horizontal piece can be really nice to kind of like keep your eye kind of lower. And then likewise, if you feel like your ceilings are really short and you want to kind of emphasize vertical lines, it's the same idea as like feeling like you look taller if you're wearing vertical stripes, having like more portrait things kind of like draws the eye up.
Fashion and art tips all in one.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, I think there's like, yeah, the kind of like the normal answers, and then there's like interesting ways you can kind of play around with it.
That's awesome. That's great. I've for a long time, and I don't think it's perfect at all, I've struggled with this part of our kitchen. So this like weird,
I love it,
space above the stove, and like we have these little built-ins right here which are adorable, but it's just kind of like a weird space in there. Mm-hmm. And I haven't changed that stuff for a while, and I want to change it. But those ideas that gives me some good ideas to check out, because
okay.
I needed a different way of thinking about it because it's like driving me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we just gotta like rearrange like what we think is like the right way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, that's another piece of this too, right? I'll cut out just sizes of pictures or frames and kind of put them in a way on the wall with just tape before I put frames, and commit to nails. Yeah. And just to kind of see if it like feels too heavy or too whatever on either side, because that kind of thing makes me crazy. So I wanted to ask, what projects are you working on now?
Oh, good question. So I just finished up creating a series of paintings, which was supposed to be part of my residency at the Ruby Street, which Bree, because you introduced me to the residency. But like for those who don't know, the Ruby Street is an event venue in Highland Park in LA, and they just started this artist residency program. I was the first, starting in March, and it's going to be, hopefully when they can get back on track, a monthly program where an artist comes in and works in the space for a month and then has a show or does a workshop at the end, kind of like featuring what they made. Yeah. So such a weird timing, because I did the first 2 weeks of March, I was there working on these embroidered paintings, and then like midway through it was, we're all told to stay home, so I didn't go. But those paintings I finished at home, and they're available on my website now. Cool. The collection is called the Ruby and Clay collection. And then, yeah, and so what I'm working on next is I'm working on a few commissions now, and then hoping for my next collection. I think for a while I was kind of like stumped, like I don't know how to move forward, kind of what we've talked about, where it's like I don't ever want to feel like I'm being like salesy, period, but like especially during this time, it's like I don't want to presume that everyone wants to buy these huge paintings, or what are they in the mood for, that kind of thing. And for me also, a lot of my work is like, it's very like happy, colorful art, and I never want that to feel like I'm just like ignoring the world and just making everything a rainbow. But I do think that like bright colors can improve our moods, and so I think I'm just, as I'm going into this next project, just kind of like embracing that, and I have some ideas for some like very wild and exciting colors, so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm hoping it just sheds a little more joy around.
I think it will, and it does, and you do. I mean, I think I've watched many webinars recently about the state that we're in and how to market and sell in this current space. I mean, the one thing is, I think we're part of a few networking groups that are kind of constantly in touch and in contact about like, what are you doing, what's going on, how are you doing, what do you need, and we all want to support each other, and we all want each other to survive this. And I think if you're acknowledging the fact that you understand what's going on, but there are still people that aren't hurting financially, that still do want to continue, collecting and doing their thing and finally getting to that guest room, because they have the money and now all of a sudden have a lot more time because they don't have kids. They're not having to homeschool, but they're at home and they're working, but they want something exciting and fun to kind of dig into. And I think that's completely appropriate to be kind of speaking to those people. And I think it's hard, right? You've got, so many followers on Instagram or in your newsletter, and how do you discern from who those people are versus people that are really hurting and who are just looking for uplifting content to kind of get through. But I think what you're doing is great, and I'm excited for these wild new ideas.
Yeah,
Wild
awesome.
colors. Where can people check you out, like find out what you're up to?
Yeah, I think the best place is my Instagram, which is at EMK Snyder, SNYDER, or my website is emilykeatingsnyder.com.
Wonderful. And that's where you sell from is that all the places people can buy to?
So I sell also at a few different kind of stores and boutiques, but mostly on my website is where you can find all my originals, and then my prints are there as well.
Okay.
And I also sell prints on Artfully Walls. If you're, familiar with that platform, I'm on there too. So
I need to check that one out. And just wondering, because I'm curious and I'm sure people are curious too, is it always better to buy direct from you?
I think that's a good question. It's been interesting, like getting into wholesale, because I've started thinking about that when I'm buying things from other people. And I think the answer is both are wonderful and both are so appreciated and both help everyone. Buying from a store helps the store and helps the artist, because then the store will replenish their order. So either way, yeah.
And it's a really good indication of, like, if you have a store on the East Coast or the West Coast, like in what neighborhood, what's doing well. I guess it helps you create really great relationships with those stockists and figuring out what you can create next that would be really beneficial for their audience and their clientele.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a win either way.
All the way around. Amazing. Well, thanks for joining me today. It was awesome to have you and kind of explore this Zoom live situation.
Thank you so much. It was so nice kind of not being on Instagram and not getting thrown off or having glitches.
Yeah, I heard every word you said. I wasn't cut out at any point. It was very nice and refreshing after, 8 weeks on Instagram live trying to make it all work.
Yeah.
But that was awesome. Cool. Well, I'm hoping to have this recording for people who want to see it after, and I'm sure I'll see you virtually soon.
Definitely. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Bree.
Thanks so much.
See ya.